Well, I met my husband in 1952, 53, and then met him again when I was teaching in management, where he was down doing his job as a weeds and seeds man, inspecting seeds down there. And then he was spraying blackberries. We got married in 1955 and lived in Geraldton. I was teaching and he continued in the Department of Agriculture. And then in 1957 we had a baby, which the department was very unhappy about because I owed them money. And Noel wasn't very happy with the department, so he decided that he wanted to go back to the country. He was born in Jamaica and he was used to working in plantations and things as overseer. And he decided he would go to Carnarvon, where his elder brother had a Carnarvon plantation, and we bought one fairly close to them. And so we went into the banana business. And we were there for several years. We had interesting times, a cyclone which blew our house away, followed by a flood which washed our property, the plants away. So my husband decided that we now had 3 children and he thought it would be a good idea if we moved south because 1, we wouldn't get blown away, and 2, they would have a better education. So we moved to Merredin. He rejoined the Department of Agriculture and we went to Merredin, where he was again the weeds and seeds officer, and his job was again looking for all the toxic weeds and so forth and arranging for them to be sprayed, and he sort of participated in that, I think. We had a baby boy, and I was concerned the minute he was given to me because he couldn't feed and breathe, and I was worried about what was happening with the snuffling and so forth. So I called the doctor and he said, right, I'll have a look at him now. And then within a couple of days, he had us in an ambulance going to Princess Margaret Hospital, where I stayed with him. I had to get the milk out, and they fed him my milk, and they looked over him pretty thoroughly then, and we were put in charge of 2 doctors, one Dr. Woolman and the other Dr. Sparrow. Woolman was the heart specialist in particular. Dr. Sparrow was a child specialist. We were sent off to Merredin with appointment to come back in a fortnight, and thereafter it was every month while he was getting stronger. He was definitely getting stronger for a while, and then he began to falter. So the time we took him back, Dr. Sparrow said, he needs to go into hospital, we're concerned about him. He was in hospital and died in hospital, aged 7 months. So all the performance about funerals and all the rest of it, and the doctor said, may we do an autopsy on this child? We'd like to know what actually was going on. So I gave permission, and my husband very reluctantly agreed. We didn't know for a few days afterwards what the autopsy had shown, but one of the major things which was truly astonishing was that he had no wall between the 2 lower chambers of his heart. So it is amazing that he actually survived it for the length of time he did. But, that was a cruel shock. But my husband decided that we would move to Perth, which we did, and we were trying to have another child. We wanted to have another one. And I was a bit concerned because nothing was happening, which was unusual. My father used to come home he had a job with the FAO, and he used to come on holidays to Australia every 2 years. And he asked me, was I sure I knew where babies came from? So I told him that I did. Anyway, the doctor was very kind, and he said, it's fine, go away, you'll be all right, it'll happen. And sure enough, it did. And he agreed that he would look after me. And during the discussions, excuse me, he was doing family history, of course, taking me on as a patient. And so he asked me about children, and I told him about David. And he didn't say anything at that particular meeting, but the next time I went for my check, he said, would I mind answering a lot of questions? Because he said, we, and he didn't say who, are doing some research at the moment. And we are very interested in what might have happened. So he took me through David's birth and all the things that were wrong with him. He didn't make any comment at the time, but the next check that I had with him, he said, "Mrs. Marr, we're a bit concerned. We think that this is probably the result of poisoning, some sort of toxic poisoning, and in view of what your husband did, we think there's a possibility there's a connection. However, there's nothing much we can do about it." So, end of story, really. But fairly shortly after that, he was able to deliver a very healthy little girl for me, with nothing wrong with her at all. And I am very interested in the fact that none of the others really have much wrong with them. But I have recalled that before Diana was born, I did lose a baby very quick. It was a very brief pregnancy, and it was very close really to the other one, so I thought it was just a natural thing. It didn't occur to me at the time. And I've only recently thought, well, I wonder, because he was in Perth doing, in Geraldton doing this spraying and so forth, but in Carnarvon they didn't use anything like that. So that it was but then he's back to the department and back to spraying weeds, and what happens? I'm very sure it was 2,4-D, and he did mention 2,4,5-T, and I think that was to do with the blackberries in the southwest around Manjimup, I guess. He would come home from work and I could smell something on him. And I sort of realised, well, I was washing his clothes and he was wearing them. A long-sleeved shirt was all he wore and long trousers, but certainly no protection of any kind, no. But I really think that time is now to take some action about it. Too many people have suffered because of the use of these toxic chemicals, and time is of the essence now.